Nancy Pelosi has been the most powerful woman in American history. She was the first female Speaker of the House. She remains an influential advisor to presidents, including President Biden in recent weeks. She was instrumental in passing everything from the 2008 financial bailout to the Affordable Care Act. But in her new book, The Art of Power, Pelosi starts out not with a legislative triumph, but with a personal tragedy when her husband was brutally attacked by an intruder who was searching for her. The Art of Power is on bookshelves now. I recently sat down with Nancy Pelosi to talk about what the book meant to her.
Tell me, you've written this new book, The Art of Power.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to write this book?
I decided a while back to write it, but I didn't have time to when I was Speaker. And so after that, there were 4 things that I was in the room where it happened, and I wanted to tell it from the side that we saw it. But then when I finally got a chance to write it, people said, well, you have to write about January 6th, you have to write about Trump, you have to write about what happened to your husband. So there are some other things in there, but it was never intended to, nor is it a memoir. It's about 4 decisions, 2 domestic, TARP and affordable health care, the most important to me, and 2 for China and the Iraq War. And that's really what the book was supposed to be about. And then it's placed in time in terms of January 6th, et cetera.
Yeah, well, you've certainly been in the room. You know, sometimes when people write books, I think they figure things out that maybe they didn't understand before. They get some insight that hadn't occurred to them because you spend so much time thinking about what it is that happened on, like on these 4 big decision-making moments when you were in the room. Was there anything like that for you? Was there anything that occurred to you or that you understood that you hadn't really fully understood before?
No, not really, because I had thought this through quite a bit. You're always learning in light of events to come, but I was reporting on what happened at the time, and I had notes, press releases, you know, I had a record of what happened at the time. There are other views as to how other people saw it, and I respect that. I'm just telling you from the room where I was in how I saw it.
You know, I want to talk about some of the specifics, but the biggest surprise to me was the Affordable Care Act chapter that was really had some wonderful nuggets in it that we didn't know before. Was there one that struck you as the one, this is the one that's going to get them surprised?
Oh, I think that was all a matter of public record at the time. I think that President Obama's role in it was so substantial, and then not only that he had a vision, but he knew the specifics of it all, and that was a joy to behold, and I try to convey that in the book. Yeah.
You know, the opening chapter is about the attack on your husband, yeah, and its aftermath, and it's heartbreaking. It's terrible. And it's not something that you've discussed in this kind of detail before. Was that hard for you to write?
Well, it was hard because I would never even had the conversation with my husband. He has not had it with us, with our family, with me. The doctors like the fact that he's not revisiting it. It's very hard when he has to go testify in court because it's a revisiting of it. And what I know about it is what he testified in court that has been reported in the public domain. I know the consequences of his coming home and the rest, but we never discussed that night, no. And so it was very hard. It was very hard because it was hard to imagine what it meant for him, but also for our children and our grandchildren. It was very traumatic. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever want to discuss it with him?
I don't want to discuss it if he doesn't want to discuss it. So if and when he's ready, he will. But as the doctors have even told us, the revisiting of it is traumatic.
You know, when I was reading this chapter, especially at the very beginning of it, where you get awakened in Washington to be told that this has happened, what struck me was you are a person who is usually so in control, yeah, so in command. And here was a situation in which it was totally out of your control.
That's right, yeah.
That must have been hard.
Well, anything that has to do with the well-being of your family is the most, shall we say, important episode that you have to deal with. So when they were banging on the door, I was sure they had the wrong apartment. There couldn't be any reason they would be doing that. And then when they started ringing the bell, I thought, well, I better go see. And when I heard the voices of the security, I wouldn't have opened the door, except it was a security saying they had to come in. And then I thought, now is it my children? Is it our grandchildren? Because what could it be? And it's your husband. Someone has broken into your home and attacked him. How is he? We don't know. Is he alive? We don't know. It was pretty awful. It was pretty awful. Of course, it's not just awful about him, it's about the children and the grandchildren that we have to tell this to.
You've been the subject of a lot of attacks yourself, not these kind of physical attacks, although there have been physical threats against you, but really fierce attacks. I mean, you think of January 6th, that was, a lot of the violence there was directed at you, but this was worse for you.
Well, it was worse because it actually happened. It happened echoing January 6th. Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? That's what they were saying in the halls of Congress, that they were saying in the hallway going into our bedroom in San Francisco. That's what he was saying. So that was awful because my husband is not political. He's a lovely gentleman and he doesn't engage in political combat in any way. He didn't bargain for this when he got married. How did this ever happen? Well, it did. So in terms of my being in politics, but he paid the price that night when the man was after me, and I feel, of course, carry a lot of guilt about that I wish that I had been there, but I don't know what would have happened if I had been there. I don't know. It would have been terrible, I'm sure.
Do you feel guilty about the attack?
Well, of course. I mean, I feel guilty that he would be going for me and taking violent action against my husband a centimeter away from death. Yeah, I feel guilty about that.
That was on October 28th, 2022, so it's been almost 2 years, not quite 2 years. How is your husband doing now?
Well, I'm hoping that by 2 years we'll cross a threshold. He's still on the mend. He's good, maybe 80%, but getting hit on the head is an ongoing affliction. And I'm hoping that with the progress that he's making, that pretty soon he'll be where he was before.
You write that it was a long time before he could go to the garden room, where the intruder had broken in, or go into the elevator where he had tried to escape. Is that still the case? Is your house kind of, I don't know, haunted by the intruder, or have you and your husband gotten over that?
Well, when he said that one day, let's go downstairs and watch the game, that was a big deal because he enjoyed it so much. That was his happy place, the sports. Occasional cigar when I wasn't around. But he had designed that room and built it out to the garden and all of that. And so it was something that meant something to him, and that it should be a place where an intruder would come in, millions of pieces of glass all over, and other consequences of a head wound, and the elevator too, because our stairs are pretty steep, as I say in the book, but he wouldn't go near the elevator, and then he did. So that was a transition for him, but it was a transition that he had to make. There was nothing we could make more appealing or whatever for him.
Yeah, but now he goes all those places. Yeah. And you said that you wrote in your book that when you weren't around, he would sleep in a different bedroom.
That's what the kids told me. He didn't tell me that, but they did. Because I mean, imagine sleeping in a room where a man comes in with things for violence. It's sometimes when I'm in the room, even with him, I'm thinking, oh my God, how horrible.
One of the things you write in your book, you say, the scars from that night will never truly heal.
No.
Do you think that's right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we're all built for survival. The human being is built for survival, to prevail, but it still carries its trauma.
You write, I do not know that we will ever feel safe. Do you feel safe yet?
I don't know that I ever have, even before that. Because the kinds of violence that was, and comments that were made would provoke people to say awful things. So, we're going to burn your house down, we know where your grandchildren are. Those kinds of things are horrible. We don't ever answer the phone in our house. Never. I mean, here or, well, our home is there. I work here. I live in San Francisco. But the other side had been so provocative as painting me as a demon, cloven feet, hood, horns on my head, blazing devil, all of that. And there are people out there who are not as, shall we say, stable as maybe some of the perpetrators of this violence, instigating of this violence. We've had a number of incidences, you know.
So it's been a while since you felt safe.
Well, I have to feel safe. You know, I mean, again, we're built for survival, so you have to be optimistic and careful.
Optimistic and careful, those are probably a good thing. Just one other quote from the book on this subject. You wrote, "This assault has truly had a devastating effect on 3 generations of our family." So you and your husband, your children, and your grandchildren. So everybody is still dealing with the aftermath of this attack.
Yeah, well, the fact is that at the beginning it was all about Dad's recovery. And that was nothing compared to how would this turn out. We didn't know how it would turn out, even though we knew that he survived. The doctors at the hospital performed a miracle at San Francisco General. They were remarkable, as were the rest of the staff, as they are to all of the people who go there. They're a trauma center that is just par excellence, and we're very proud of it in our community. We didn't think we would be availing ourselves of it, but there we were. So there's that. So it was all about Dad to begin with, and how he would be an indication of how well we would heal. But it's still, I mean, this is their grandfather, the sweet, lovely man that he is, having this assault in his own home, in his own room, our own room. It's horrible.
You know, we've seen the rhetoric in our politics get so much harsher than it's been in modern times, and actual violence, the attack on your husband, even the assassination attempt this month.
Terrible.
On Donald Trump. Do these incidents, like the attack on Mr. Pelosi, have they prompted people to kind of reconsider where we are, or do you think things are not getting better? No,
I think that, again, we have to be resilient, but for a long time, women had said to me, I'm reluctant to engage or run for office not because of physical violence, but verbal abuse that I took. But I took the worst. Yes. I mean, I was the target. And I would say to them, well, it's worth it. We need you, this, that. Well, you may need me, but my kids do too. And I don't need my children coming home from school crying because somebody said something nasty about me in school that somebody put in a commercial that isn't true. And that has an impact, you know. So what do you say to women who are trying to recruit to run when they say that to you? Well, I say to them, what I say to everybody, even from the start, before the violence, know your why. Know why you're doing this. Why did I leave? I have 5 kids. Now they're grown, so I go from housewife to House member to House Speaker for the children. That was my why. 1 in 5 children in America living in poverty, going to sleep hungry at night. That just was in the greatest country in the world that ever existed. How could it be? So that's my why. And everything that I do, I see through the eyes of the children. I brought the house to order on behalf of the children. So when you get attacked, you know why you're there. You know why you're there, and that makes a difference. If you don't have a purpose or a goal or vision of all of this, then why not just go do something else where you're less of a target, but what your contribution to society would be respected without danger. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, thank you for joining us. My pleasure. Thank you.